We left him standing at the threshold of a room most people spend their entire lives avoiding. A room where the body doesn't ask you to stop, it demands it. Where your lungs burn, your legs give out, your mind screams 1,000 reasons to quit, all of them sounding completely reasonable. Most human beings hear that voice and obey it instantly, without question, without a fight. But David Goggins walked into that room on purpose. Again, and again, and again, because he had discovered a secret hiding on the other side of unbearable pain. A secret that would not just change his body, but rewire the very architecture of his mind. There's a phrase Goggins uses that sounds almost violent out of context, but once you understand it, it becomes one of the most powerful psychological weapons a human being can carry: taking souls. It doesn't mean harming anyone. It means something far more surgical. It means using the suffering of a shared moment to break your competition's belief in themselves, simply by refusing to break yours. Picture a room full of exhausted men during Navy SEAL training, all suffering identically under the same freezing water, the same impossible demands, the same instructors screaming to quit. In that room, everyone is equal in pain. But pain is not what determines who survives. Perception is. The moment one man looks over and sees another man smiling through the same agony he himself cannot bear, something breaks inside him that has nothing to do with his muscles and everything to do with his belief. He starts to think, if he can endure this and still smile, maybe I am simply not strong enough. That thought is more dangerous than the cold water itself. Goggins learned to become that man, not to taunt anyone, but to broadcast silently through sheer presence. This suffering does not own me. And in doing so, he took the psychological soul out of every man who was secretly looking for permission to quit. Here is a principle beneath the story. In any competitive arena, business, sport, negotiation, even a difficult conversation, your opponent is rarely broken by the external conditions. They are broken by watching you refuse to be broken by them. When you walk into a boardroom exhausted, underprepared, or afraid, and you carry yourself as though none of that matters, you are not lying. You are demonstrating a mind that has already decided the outcome before the room does. But willpower alone cannot sustain a human being through years of self-inflicted suffering. Willpower runs dry. It needs fuel, and that fuel has to come from somewhere real, somewhere earned. This is where Goggins built one of the most quietly brilliant psychological tools in the entire book, the cookie jar. The idea is deceptively simple. You take every difficult moment you have ever survived, every humiliation, every failure that you clawed your way back from, every time the world told you that you were finished, and you proved it wrong, and you store them mentally like cookies in a jar, not to relive the pain, but to remember the proof. Because when you're standing at mile 80 of an ultramarathon, when your feet are bleeding through your shoes, and every rational part of your brain is begging you to stop, you don't need a motivational quote. You need evidence. You reach into that jar and you pull out a memory. The year you were nearly 200 pounds heavier and still finished the swim test. The night your instructors told you that you would never make it and you made it anyway. That memory becomes undeniable proof presented to a mind that is trying to convince you that you cannot continue. And a mind cannot argue with proof the way it can argue with hope. This is why the most resilient people you'll ever meet, the founders who rebuilt companies after bankruptcy, the athletes who came back from career-ending injuries, are rarely the ones with the easiest pasts. They are the ones with the fullest cookie jars. Every scar became a receipt. Every collapse became evidence of a comeback already proven possible. Your past suffering, reframed correctly, is not a wound. It is ammunition. And this brings us to the single most important scientific psychological revelation in the entire framework. The the discovery that everything before was quietly building toward. Goggins calls it the 40% rule, and once you understand it, you will never look at your own limits the same way again. Here it is. When your mind tells you that you are completely, utterly finished, that you cannot take one more step, lift one more rep, endure one more second, you have, on average, only used about 40% of your actual capacity. The other 60% is still there, locked away, guarded by a psychological governor your brain installed for one purpose only: self-preservation. Your brain, in its ancient wiring, treats extreme effort as a threat to survival, and so it sends you a false signal of total exhaustion long before your body has actually reached its true limit. It is not lying to hurt you. It is lying to protect you from a danger that, in the modern world, rarely exists anymore. This is why Goggins could run 100 miles on a broken body, why he could pass a punishing selection course 3 separate times after being medically disqualified twice, why ordinary men and women who apply this rule in business, in study, in art, consistently outperform people with far more natural talent. They are not superhuman. They have simply learned to distrust the first voice of surrender because they know it is a liar wearing a mask of truth. And this is the second rung in our ladder, the one that lifts us from mastering our environment to mastering the internal governor sitting quietly behind our own eyes. Taking souls taught us to project unbreakability outward. The cookie jar taught us to fuel ourselves from proof, not hope. But the 40% rule teaches us something far more dangerous and far more liberating. The very ceiling you believe in was never real. It was installed. But here's the terrifying question that even the 40% rule cannot fully answer. If the governor is a lie, how far does the lie actually go? Because there exists a point, even beyond that hidden 60%, where elite athletes, the most conditioned human beings alive, still shatter. A point where the body is not exaggerating anymore, where the mind and the flesh finally agree that this is, in fact, the end. Most people never come close enough to that true edge to even know it exists. But the ones who find it, who stand directly on that final line and choose to take one more step anyway, they don't just break records. They break the definition of what a human being is allowed to be. That line has a name. And in the final part of this story, we walk you to the very edge of it. This is only where the story begins. The deepest, most powerful insights are yet to be uncovered. Watch the next part on your screen right now, and let's go deeper. Stay sharp.